The Mask of Fear by Alexander Freed comes out on February 25th. I got to read it early, so here are my spoiler-free thoughts. The novel is being marketed as for fans of Andor, and I can absolutely say that is accurate. The Mask of Fear shares a lot in common with my favorite Star Wars series. It's also written by one of my favorite Star Wars authors. Alexander Freed wrote the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, which I think is fantastic. So The Mask of Fear had some fairly high expectations for me, and it mostly lives up to them. Just like Andor, this is a very political and relevant story. It takes place in the weeks following Revenge of the Sith. It is full of complex ideas and complicated characters. Mon Mothma and Bail Organa have two of the central roles in the book, and neither of them are treated like they're these perfect leaders who always know what was good and right. They're in an insanely stressful situation, and a lot of their friends just died, so they butt heads and argue and get frustrated with one another constantly. Andor got us used to seeing Mothma in this light, but it's great to now see Bail's perspective, and I will absolutely think about events in this book when or if we see both of those characters in Andor Season 2. Hopefully by that point in the timeline, they will be more on the same page, because in The Mask of Fear, they very much are not. A major theme of the book is how difficult it is to do the right thing, especially when the entire galaxy is at stake. Mothma, Bail, and Saw Gerrera, who is also a large part of the book, each have their own philosophies. Mothma thinks she can fix things through politics. Of course, Saw thinks he can set things right through violence. And Bail is on a quest for truth exonerating the Jedi, and he thinks if he can just present people with the truth, everyone will believe him, which, unfortunately, I think the real world in the internet age has shown us that is absolutely not the case. These three future rebel leaders just can't cooperate. The book makes the case that if Padme were alive, she would have been the glue to hold them all together. But without her, they roll their eyes at one another and they argue. I think in part because it's much safer fighting with people who are good rather than fighting with the Emperor and his sycophants who will lock them up or kill them simply for disagreeing. So how do you unite and work against a regime that has zero interest in doing what is good? Mothma and Bail want to do right by the people that voted for them and the rest of the galaxy, but they also have these pesky morals that hold them back. Meanwhile, the Empire is willing to do absolutely anything to maintain power, not just immediately, but for generations. They don't care about the morals as long as they keep control. Saw is already someone with questionable morals, but seeing Mon and Bail struggle with compromised morals and wondering how far is too far was good. The galaxy just got out of a war, and nobody wants the fighting to continue, including Mothma and Organa. They're not there yet, but Star Wars often asks us the question, when is it the right time to fight? Violence should never be a first resort, but sometimes it is a necessary one. Like I said, this is a complex book with heavy themes, and it does not shy away from very relevant ideas. There were several moments where I just felt like everything was too real, like the subplot about the pro-imperial militia group that has the quiet backing of the administration. I don't want to get into spoilers, but everything surrounding that group was chilling. That's another way The Mask of Fear is very similar to Andor. There are moments of fun peppered throughout the book and the series, but I wouldn't call either of them fun stories. Some episodes of Andor would end with me just wide-eyed and emotionally exhausted, but those episodes make the victories of One Way Out, for example, feel that much more uplifting. The Mask of Fear makes you feel the oppression of the Empire, but this is also the very start of the Imperial regime. We're not blowing up the Death Star and celebrating for another 19 years. I didn't finish this book feeling uplifted like I do with most Star Wars books. I also didn't quickly read through it in a few sittings because I had to know what was going to happen next. I read it in about 10 sittings because sometimes I just needed to take a break. And I don't want that to sound like a criticism necessarily. I think that's how Freed wants us to feel, so the hopeful victories of books 2 and 3 will feel that much more exhilarating. For even more Andor similarities, I would say the book is structured like an episode or arc of the series. We bounce between several characters, but for the most part we have a political intrigue story following Mon Mothma on Coruscant, and we get the action half of the story by following Bail Organa and Saw Gerrera on their mission. I think that worked well. I enjoyed Bail trying to step up and do what he thinks the Jedi would do in their absence, but he's not a Jedi. That's not where he belongs, and he has to learn that. I liked both parts of the story well enough, but I definitely preferred Mothma's stuff. Maybe that's because I already knew what to expect from her thanks to Andor. Those scenes on Coruscant where she's making dangerous political moves in the middle of a party are some of my favorites. One of the main criticisms of Andor I see repeated is that it loses some of the weirder, pulpy elements of Star Wars. I think Freed is able to get away with a lot more in The Mask of Fear simply because it's the written word. Our imagination can set our own personal level of weirdness. One of the new major characters is a Heptuanian spy, and I simply kept forgetting that she was an alien with floppy ears running around being a badass. Some of the settings and set pieces can be bigger and weirder and less grounded in reality since there's no budget restricting the storytelling, but the stakes still felt very real. Whenever stories like this come out that bridge the gap between eras, I think there are always concerns that the stakes won't feel big enough since we do know what will eventually happen. At least I had those thoughts about Bail and Mothma's primary goals, but Freed did a great job at surprising me. I thought I knew exactly where things were headed, and I could not have been more wrong. So the plot isn't as straightforward as you might guess. But honestly, this book isn't about the plot. It's more about the characters, their philosophies, and their struggle to find common ground, cooperate, and push back against authoritarianism. The Mask of Fear is a very good book. The writing is fantastic and thought-provoking, the themes are moving and relevant, we get to know the main characters on a deeper level than we ever have before. I think fans of Andor are going to love this style. I liked it a lot, but I also think its realism is going to keep it from being one of my favorite Star Wars books. Most Star Wars stories end with a sense of hope, even Revenge of the Sith, so it's a strange feeling to close a Star Wars book and not quite get that. It actually does remind me of watching those first 3 episodes of Andor. When I first saw them, I was on board and I was interested. They left me excited to see more, but they were kind of melancholy. But like I said earlier, you need those sadder moments so you can build up to larger emotional victories. I'll be curious to see how deep into the Reign of the Empire the next 2 books will take us, because obviously we can't reach huge victories like the battles of Scarif or Yavin, but I hope our characters find some personal and emotional victories. So I would recommend The Mask of Fear to fans of Andor for sure, or anyone who has ever wished for a very politically driven Star Wars story, or people who crave more adult Star Wars stories. I would definitely say this book is less accessible to younger readers and is probably targeted at people in their 20s and older. But I think that's all I have to say about The Mask of Fear for now. The book is out on February 25th, and it'll be available on Audible as well. If you're interested in listening to the audiobook for free, you can by signing up for Audible at the link in the description, or by visiting audibletrial.com/Star Wars Explained. Star Wars audiobooks are almost always very high quality with sound effects and music, so it's kind of like listening to a movie, or an episode of Andor. If you sign up for a free Audible trial, you'll get a credit for 1 free audiobook you can use to pre-order The Mask of Fear, or get just about any Star Wars book you can think of, or get any book you want. The point is, you'll get a free book and you'll be supporting the channel when you do. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page, where we'll have a book club meeting for The Mask of Fear sometime in March. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.